So you've got a growth mindset. You still feel stuck, stressed, and secretly like a failure? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what no one actually talks about with a growth mindset. Sometimes, a lot of times, the growth mindset actually turns into the self-help hamster wheel. You're smart, you're capable, you've done the therapy, you know how to talk the talk, and maybe even sometimes walk the walk. But you're exhausted, not from life, but from trying to keep up this idea that you always have to be thinking about the opportunities. If this sounds familiar, this video is for you, and I want you to stick around. So let's talk about the idea of where the growth mindset even came from. It was actually from a researcher named Carol Dweck, who did research into this idea of a fixed mindset or a fluid mindset, this idea of a growth mindset. Dwyer basically found that those with a growth mindset realized or knew that their abilities, their capacity could grow and expand over time, that it wasn't fixed innately for the rest of their lives. It's actually a really beautiful concept when you look at it in its purest form, which is what the research actually says. But somewhere along the way, it got repackaged into this hustly, do better, always be positive, always be upbeat type of mantra that we just can't seem to let go of. It sounds a lot like every setback is an opportunity. Stay positive and keep moving. You're not failing, you're just learning. Cute. Until your nervous system taps the out and you're crying in the line at Whole Foods because the person in front of you is taking just a little bit longer than you wanted them to. P.S. There's nothing wrong with crying in a line at Whole Foods. Let's talk about what happens when we misuse this idea of growth mindset in the way that it's become, not the way that it was actually originally intended. What ends up happening is that we think that we have to be upbeat all the time, which means that we end up bypassing or suppressing our very real, very valid, very human emotions. We judge ourselves and others for not being super positive or trying to always look for the opportunity in every single situation. And here's the kicker. We end up labeling very normal, very natural human responses as mindset blocks. And that creates a super sneaky shame spiral type of situation. It can sound like having thoughts like, if I had really done the work, I wouldn't feel this way. If I was truly committed, I'd be more organized or energized or curious instead of how I'm actually feeling. But real growth, and I'm even beginning to have a kind of funky relationship with that word because what does growth really mean anyway? But let's just call it growth for now. Real growth is not about bypassing our feelings or only having feelings that we label positive. It's not about having the feelings that we only think are good to have or that we should be allowed to have. It's expanding our capacity to have all types of feelings. Because here's the reality. Sometimes growth looks like breakthroughs and massive aha moments and taking huge action that feels really good or that reaps super amazing benefits. And other time, growth looks like crying on the couch under a blanket and not making it mean a damn thing about who you are as a human being. So here's what I want to do in this video is actually redefine what a growth mindset sounds like, looks like, and actually is in real life. A growth mindset can sound more like I do the hard things and I rest when I need to. I feel sad or scared or depressed or resentful or jealous and I'm still growing. I can slow down and still be moving forward. Both can happen at the same time. Growth doesn't always have to feel productive. It doesn't have to feel predictable. And it's definitely not always pretty. The reason why this all matters is because if you're building something, a brand, a business, a product, especially something that is infused with who you are, the core of who you are as a human being, your growth needs to allow room for your humanity And humanity does not mean being positive all the time or responding like a saint to every single situation that gets placed in front of you. The version of growth mindset that Carol Dweck originally found came out from her research was more about realizing that we have the capacity to expand. And that's exactly what I want you to take away from this video. Always being positive, always being upbeat, always looking for the opportunities is not actually expansion. It's actually super rigid and fixed in only one space. Especially if you apply that to your business and in life, things can start feeling like a trap or a cage instead of this thing that is actually quite beautiful and can really give you a bunch of new opportunities when it's used appropriately, when it's used with humanity. You're not lazy for not being positive all the time. You're not broken for having feelings like fear and sadness and anger and resentment and jealousy. You're just a human. You're not doing it wrong. You just got wrapped up in thinking that a growth mindset meant one thing in the container of a culture that breeds that we have to be a certain way in order to succeed. If you want to learn how to feel your feelings to actually increase your capacity to have life and business and all of it wrapped up into one and not feel like the tiniest little thing is going to melt you down or bowl you over, I want you to check out another video that I made. It's all about how to actually go through the steps of feeling your feelings so that you can have that increased capacity and therefore the real growth mindset. I'll pop the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video, and don't forget to speak your truth.